Okay, so you're researching the best city for you to live in Mexico. And you've probably watched a ton of videos, maybe you've read a lot of different blog posts, and you're seeing people just post about all kinds of cities across Mexico, but you're torn between a town that's full of history or maybe one that's buzzing with energy, that has really nice art, maybe some amazing food. Or you might be looking for places that have a bohemian nightlife, trendy restaurants, a youthful energy, or maybe a place that's full of history. Maybe it has charming cobblestone streets that you've heard of, and you're looking for a relaxed pace of life or a deep connection to Mexican ancient roots. Well, what if I told you that you don't have to choose? That there's actually a city in Mexico that checks a lot of these boxes. Well, welcome to Cholula. This is the Pueblo Mágico in Mexico with two souls. This is a place that's very university focused, it has a very young vibe, it lives right next to one of the most important archaeological sites in the world, and it's a town where you can find both ancient tradition and modern amenities all under the watchful eye of the Popocatépetl, which most people just know it as the Popo, which is the large volcano in the Central Highlands of Mexico. And you can find basically the perfect blend of lifestyles that I know a lot of you are looking for. So, is Cholula the perfect place for you to live in Mexico? Well, let's find out. Welcome back to Mexico Relocation Guide. My name is Mariana, and by the end of this video, you will know more about Cholula's cost of living. You'll see some rental examples, you'll learn how to get around, how do most of the people in this area do their shopping, what kinds of options you have, and you'll understand the unique pros and cons of living in Cholula. So what do you say? Comencemos. Let's get started. Okay, so first things first, where is Cholula? Well, Cholula is located in central Mexico, right next to the city of Puebla. So it's like a peaceful suburb just 20 minutes away from big city amenities. And interestingly enough, Cholula is made up of two municipalities. They are San Pedro and San Andres. Now, San Pedro is the traditional historic center, while San Andres is home to a major university and has a younger population and therefore a younger vibe. Now, at 7,000 feet above sea level, Cholula enjoys a temperate highland climate almost all year round. It doesn't have extreme heat or extreme cold temperatures. And that's actually what makes it very appealing to a lot of people. Now, April and May are the warmest months by far, usually with daytime temperatures hovering around 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And then, to contrast that, the coldest months are December and January, with daytime temperatures in the 70s and then chilly nights in the 40s. So you would definitely need a jacket after the sun goes down in the winter. But you won't have to shovel any snow, and what's really nice is during the day you still get the really nice sunny days. Now, the rainy season here runs from late May through October. And typically, the mornings are really sunny, and then in the afternoon you get those downpouring showers. Now, locals here recommend dressing in layers and wearing sunscreen because the sun here is very strong, and that's because of the altitude. And then, of course, temperatures tend to shift throughout the day. Now, Cholula has two different sides. Like I mentioned earlier, there's really two municipalities, and San Andres feels young and busy because of the university. There are lots of cafes, bars, and a fun modern vibe. Now, San Pedro is quieter and more traditional. It's known for its history, its local markets, and a general slower pace of life. It's more like the traditional tourist zone of this area. Now, because of this mix, Cholula attracts a small number of foreigners. Most are younger people like students or digital nomads, but there's actually a quite big number of retirees. Now, the expat community here is very friendly, but it's not too big. So you can enjoy local life, or you can connect with other foreigners if you want to, or if you don't know anybody in town when you first arrive. Now that you know more about the vibe, what kinds of neighborhoods would you live in? So let's look at some of those. Now, I'm going to start with the historic and center of San Pedro. This is the oldest part of town, and it's defined by the immense Great Pyramid and the beautiful Convento de San Gabriel, which is a massive 16th century monastery that feels like a fortress. Now, the vibe here is calmer, more traditional. It's deeply connected to its cultural roots. The streets in the surrounding Barrio de San Miguel are perfect for quiet walks, lined with colorful colonial homes and small family-run shops. Now, life here revolves around the local market and the historic plaza, which offer a relaxed, family-friendly atmosphere that feels like you're worlds away from the student nightlife of San Andres. Now, the housing in this area consists mainly of classic colonial homes and some smaller, low-rise apartment buildings. It's really the perfect place to find a home with authentic character. Now, to give you an idea, the cost of an unfurnished two-bedroom apartment in a traditional building typically costs between 7,000 and 10,000 pesos a month. That's anywhere between 380 to about 550 USD, depending on exchange rates. For a furnished, modern loft-style apartment, you can expect prices to be closer to 12,500 pesos and up. So this is about 675 US dollars. And then if you want a fully unfurnished 3-bedroom house in this area at a great value, then your prices are often going to range between 12,000 to 18,000 pesos. That's about 650 to about 970 US dollars. This is a much larger home, but do keep in mind that most likely will be unfurnished. Now, something to keep in mind in the Central Highlands of Mexico is that a lot of these homes actually include some level of utilities. Usually water, maybe water and electricity, or maybe water, electricity, and internet. Now, let me break down the pros and cons of living in San Pedro Cholula. Now, some of the pros include that it has historic beauty and charm because you're literally living next to one of the most important archaeological sites in the world. The beauty and history here is undeniable. It's also very peaceful, it's quiet, the atmosphere is much more relaxed than in San Andres, which makes it ideal for those who want to escape the noise. Now, the walkability of this area, especially the centro of San Pedro, is very walkable, with easy access to the local market, shops, and restaurants. Now, some of the cons are, of course, the tourist crowds. Because you are living next to one of the most famous pyramids in the world and the largest one, the area, especially on weekends and holidays, can get very crowded with tourists. And this means more traffic and more people in the immediate vicinity of your home, like at restaurants, markets, and the kinds of places that you'd probably go to on a regular basis. There's also older properties here. And while these are very charming, many homes are older and may not have the modern open plan design or amenities like dedicated parking or those kinds of things. Now, of course, this one is a deal breaker for a lot of people, and that is the Cholula fireworks. Now, Cholula is famous for its numerous religious festivals, which are a beautiful part of the culture. However, this also means frequent and very loud cohetes, which are fireworks. And that often means that they start early in the morning, or for some times at the year, they're like in the middle of the night. And for some of you, this is a charming part of living in a small town of Mexico. But for others, it can be a significant downside, especially if you have pets that are very sensitive to these kinds of noises. So, something for you to consider. And now let's cross over to the other side of Cholula, the dynamic center of San Andres. Now, this area is the modern social heart of the two towns. It's fueled by the energy of the nearby Universidad de las Américas de Puebla, one of Mexico's most prestigious universities, and the vibe here is youthful, artistic, it's full of life. Now, the streets of San Andres Centro are buzzing with activity. This is where you'll find the highest concentration of trendy cafes, international restaurants, craft beer places, and obviously unique boutiques and stores. It has a creative, almost bohemian energy with vibrant street art and a constant flow of students and visitors exploring what it has to offer. It is a place that feels connected, modern, and there's always something going on. So if you like being in the mix of it all, this is really the place that maybe I would recommend for you. Now, the housing here is a mix of modern apartment buildings and remodeled homes, often geared towards the student and younger professional market. Now, to give you an idea, rental prices reflect the area's popularity and, of course, modern amenities. To give you an idea, a furnished 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in a modern building will usually run between 9,000 and 15,000 pesos per month. That's around 485 to about 810 US dollars a month. For larger 3-bedroom houses or apartments, prices typically range from 15,000 to 25,000 pesos. And that's around 800 to about 1,350 US dollars a month, especially for properties with really modern finishes or maybe 24/7 security, or maybe, a lot of amenities included. Now, if you're interested in knowing the pros and cons of living in San Andres Centro, let's go over some of those now. Now, some of the pros are the unbeatable daytime convenience. For example, you can walk to an endless variety of coffee shops, bakeries, lunch spots. The streets are flat, and it's a very pleasant area to stroll during the day. Now, there's also abundant services because this area has a high concentration of things like health food stores, modern laundry facilities, banks, and they're all within a walking distance or easy walking distance to pretty much anywhere in this area. Now, it's also vibrant. It's got a youthful energy. So for those who really enjoy being surrounded by the trendy restaurants, they like having some nightlife options. The daytime atmosphere can also be fun because there's art going on. Well, this is really the place that maybe you should consider. But there are some cons, and the number one con is obviously the nightlife noise. Because this is the biggest consideration for a lot of you, San Andres is the center of Cholula's nightlife. And on weekends and often on Thursdays, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the noise from bars, clubs, and students on the streets can last well into the night. Now, for anyone sensitive to these kinds of noises, this could be a major deal breaker, especially if you live very close to a bar or a club or a restaurant that stays open late. Now, it's also got I don't know if this is going to be a deal breaker for you guys or not, but it does have a transient population. Because of the university, there is a constant cycle of students coming and going, which can make it feel less like a settled long-term community compared to San Pedro or other residential areas. And then there is higher cost for quote-unquote calm, which means that finding a truly quiet street in the immediate center can be difficult and will come at a higher price point because, of course, you're going to probably be in a more exclusive neighborhood. So what if you love the idea of walking to a trendy cafe in San Andres, but want to come home to a truly quiet street? Or maybe you appreciate the historic, laid-back vibe of San Pedro, but also you want to be a bit closer to the amenities that San Andres has. Well, for that, we have the perfect solution, and that's the residential neighborhood of Santiago Xicotenco. Now, this neighborhood is the strategic heart of Cholula. It's located right on the border between San Andres and San Pedro, right next to the university campus. And its vibe is all about peaceful residential living. The streets here are pretty quiet, they're wider, they're lined with single-family homes, low-rise apartment buildings, and a few small parks. So it's great if you have furry friends. Now, housing here is a great mix of apartments and single-standing homes, which often provide more space for your money than you'd find in the city centers or some other areas in these small towns of Mexico. Now, to give you an idea, a spacious, unfurnished, 2 or 3 bedroom apartment will typically run between 8,000 to 12,000 pesos a month. That's about 430 to about 650 US dollars, depending on the exchange rate. For a full independent 3-bedroom home, often with a small yard or garage space, prices will range between 12,000 to 20,000 pesos, or about 650 to about 1,100 US dollars. Now, I'm sure you also want to know about the pros and cons of living in this in-between zone. Starting with the pros are the ultimate location. So this is its superpower. You're in the quiet middle with a 15-minute walk to the nightlife of San Andres and also a 15-minute walk to the historic Zócalo of San Pedro. So you get to experience a little bit of both if you want to take a quick walk. You can also escape the tourist crowds of San Pedro and the late night noise of San Andres while living here. So it's genuinely just a quieter place to call home. And you also get more space for your money, compared especially to the more touristic areas or some of the centro areas. Well, you know, if you're wanting especially a larger home or apartments with more space, maybe some green spaces and parking options for a very similar or in some cases lower prices. Now, some of the cons are that you're not in the heart of the action, so to speak. The trade-off for this quiet area is that you aren't stepping out of your door directly into the bustling plaza or a street full of bars. You will always have a short walk to get to the main attractions. Now, it also has a less distinct vibe because it's a blend of a couple of worlds. It doesn't have that strong identity of the bohemian San Andres Center or of the historic San Pedro. It feels more like a comfortable, pleasant suburb. It's very residential. And there are a couple of fewer immediate amenities. There are corner stores, but you'll need to walk about 10 to 15 minutes to get to the main concentration of restaurants, cafes, shops, and other kinds of retailers. So for anyone who wants to enjoy everything that Cholula has to offer without being overwhelmed by its more extreme personalities, we think that Santiago Chicotenco offers a really nice blend of balanced and practical lifestyles. So now that you know about the neighborhoods that we would recommend, of course, these aren't the only ones, but these are the main ones that we could see a lot of our audience members or you watching at home being able to like. So now that you know more about those, what about utilities? Now, thanks to its temperate climate year-round, a lot of homes in Cholula will tend to have lower utility costs, especially when compared to the beach towns of Mexico. And especially considering that electricity tends to be one of the most expensive utilities in Mexico. Now, to give you an idea, for electricity, costs usually stay low, and you can expect to pay around 300 to 500 pesos a month. That's about 16 to 27 US dollars. Now, usually you wouldn't need air conditioning or heating, but of course, depending on your personal preferences, when it gets cold in the winter, especially at night, even a small heater shouldn't make your utility skyrocket. And many people end up buying electric blankets that are plugged in or are battery operated just to make their beds warm in the middle of winter. Now for water, for 2 people, you can expect a bill every 2 months of around 250 to 400 pesos. That's about 13 to 22 US dollars. Now, costs are usually very low for water in most parts of Mexico. And then gas is used to heat most elements like, your water heater, and then, of course, your cooking, your gas stove, things like that. You can expect to have a 30-liter tank that lasts you about 2 to 3 months for a couple with typical cooking and heating habits. That will cost you around 600 pesos for those 2 to 3 months. That's about 32 US dollars. It's very affordable. Now, of course, depending on your rental and what's included, some of these utilities will never come out of pocket for you. But if they do, you can expect internet to cost anywhere between 450 to about 550 pesos for a basic plan of about anywhere between 50 to 100 megabytes per second. It just depends on the provider. That's about 24 to 30 US dollars. Now, to sum up utilities, you could expect to pay around 65 to 95 US dollars a month if you're a couple, or about 100 to 150 US dollars if you're a family of 3 or more. Okay, now real quick before we dive into shopping and healthcare, if you're doing your research on moving to Cholula, or anywhere else in Mexico for that matter, I highly suggest getting our free Living in Mexico email series. It's the perfect way to get your research and get a lot of good insights. We have helped thousands move to Mexico with our free resources, and I know that we can certainly help you too. In it, we covered things like visa and residency requirements, healthcare options and some costs, how much money you really need to live in Mexico based on a lot of our clients and audience members' feedback, tips for finding rentals, the best places to live for every budget, how to find the right professionals to help you with your move to Mexico, and even what are some of the downsides of life in Mexico that pretty much no one ever talks about. It's packed with very practical advice based on helping thousands of people move here successfully. So if you're interested, just click the link in the video description or in the comments section and you can sign up. It's completely free and you'll get the first email right away. Okay, now let's get into grocery shopping. And one of the best parts of living in Cholula is the easy access to fresh, local food. For a traditional market experience, you're going to head over to the Mercado Municipal de San Pedro, Cholula. It's great for produce, it has meats, cheese, and you get to soak up the local vibe. Now for something bigger, we do recommend you check out the Tianguis de Chichitla, which is a weekly open-air market where you'll find everything from veggies to fish, meat, cheese, clothes, and home goods. If you need a modern supermarket, you're going to be covered with stores like Chedraui, Soriana, Bodega Aurrera, and Walmart. And if you're into healthy living or you want plant-based eating or you just want alternative type of grocery stores, and we recommend Veggie Deli for vegetarian and vegan products or Lula Gourmet for organic and specialty items. And then for quick conveniences, you'll find OXXO stores all over town, plus plenty of little corner shops called tienditas, which are perfect for grabbing snacks, drinks, or last-minute basics, which are usually just steps away from your home. Now, before we jump into healthcare, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from you guys. Now, when it comes to healthcare, Cholula definitely has you covered for everyday needs. For minor issues, you can take advantage of one of the most convenient aspects of life in Mexico, and that's the pharmacy doctor. You'll find chains like Farmacias Similares and Farmacias del Ahorro, which are all over town, where you can get a quick professional consultation for less than $5, and that's without insurance. It's perfect for things like a cold, a stomach bug, a rash, or getting a prescription refilled. For more significant medical needs, Cholula has its own respected private hospital, and that's Hospital MAC, as well as the Hospital General de Cholula for major emergencies. Now, you'll also find numerous private clinics and specialists throughout the area. And one of Cholula's biggest advantages is actually its location, because for any highly specialized treatment that you cannot get in Cholula, you have world-class care only 20 minutes away in the city of Puebla. Okay, so how do you actually get here? Well, most people fly into one of two airports, and that's either the Mexico City International Airport, which is about a 2-hour drive away from Cholula, depending on traffic. And you can get to Cholula by either hiring a private driver or scheduling a shuttle, or you can also take the ADO bus, which goes from the airport to Puebla, then a short taxi or Uber to Cholula. You can also use rideshare apps, or you can rent a car if you prefer that flexibility. You can also fly into the Puebla International Airport, which is obviously much closer to Cholula, only a 20 to 30 minute drive away. It is a smaller airport, so flights are probably less frequent and maybe require a connection. But it's a good option if you find a good deal or you're coming from cities that have a nonstop flight. Once you arrive in Cholula, you'll find it easy to get around without a car, thanks to its walkability and a lot of really good local transportation options. So Cholula is actually very walkable, especially if you live near the centers of San Pedro or San Andreas. You can easily run errands, shop, and grab a coffee on foot, which is one of the town's best features. Now, for longer trips, we do recommend using either a combi or a colectivo. These are small shared vans that run on fixed routes. They're frequent, they're reliable, it's what the locals use, and they're super cheap. They're typically running around 10 to 12 pesos per ride. Now, if you prefer a little more privacy or you just want to be a little bit more flexible, there is Uber and Didi in town, and they're very affordable for getting around town. Now, that said, I don't personally recommend a car for everyday use because it does have narrow cobblestone streets, there's limited parking, which can make driving more trouble than it's worth. But if you want to explore the region, like for example the nearby volcanoes, the nearby pueblos mágicos, then a car can be a great option for weekend adventures. So unless you plan on regular road trips, you'll probably do just fine without a car here. But of course, having your own car is going to be a wonderful luxury for exploring the beautiful surrounding areas or taking trips to nearby towns or just having the flexibility to be able to get up and go whenever you want. So what do you think about Cholula? I would love to know in the comments. Would you go for the lively vibe of San Andres or the historic charm of San Pedro, or maybe something right in the middle? Now, personally, I think Cholula is one of the most unique places to live in Mexico. You get the old world charm, you're close to a very important archaeological site, and you're only 20 minutes away from a huge city which has all the modern conveniences, like for example an international airport. And because it isn't as popular as San Miguel de Allende or Ajijic, the rental rates here, in my personal opinion, are still very reasonable. But of course, speaking about that, it's important to know what the real cost of things is in Mexico so that you can do your part to help avoid accidentally overpaying for things like housing or services, which could end up raising the cost of living in smaller towns like Cholula. And that's what I try to do here with these videos, with our blog posts, with our live streams, with all the resources that I try to put together for you guys on how to move to Mexico the right way. I try to give you a ton of information on what the real cost of things is to help you live like a local would. And remember, you don't have to navigate the move to Mexico on your own. Check out the description of this video for more resources that I've put together for you, or head to our site, MexicoRelocationGuide.com, and explore the tools, resources, and of course our complete Mexico relocation guide to help you move to Mexico the right way. And hey, if you found this video to be helpful, please do me a favor and give it a like. It helps others find this information too. So thank you so much for watching. This is not goodbye. This is just an hasta luego. You're watching Mexico Relocation Guide, and I will see you all in our next video. Nos vemos!